Excellent. Okay, ready to rock when you are.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Karl. So we've got here. Oh, he's gone. I've nominated myself to interview you because you've always been a bit of a hero of mine, and I've always wished I could have a great surname like Krushelnitsky. So, are you in lockdown where you are?
Moderate lockdown in New South Wales, and we are ready to rock, man.
Please welcome everyone, Dr. Karl Krushelnitsky, our special guest for the evening, who is, of course, famous for answering lots and lots of questions on science for a long, long time in Australia. So welcome, Dr. Karl.
You're awfully kind. Thank you. Although I should point out that quite often the answer is, I don't know. Magic 3 words.
Well, that's science, isn't it? Can we start with viruses?
Mm-hmm.
I've heard viruses described as somewhere between living and non-living. Are viruses alive? And if they are alive, what color are they? Because in the pictures, the trimers of coronavirus are all really red and nasty looking.
Well, on Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays, I reckon that viruses are alive. On Tuesdays, Thursdays and Saturdays, I reckon they're not. And on Sundays, I don't know and have a rest. Okay, let's just run through the whole process. So assume you've got a swimming pool in your backyard, loaded with water and the macronutrients and the micronutrients that a living creature needs. Fats, protein, carbohydrates, and vitamins, iron, selenium, you name it, all a little fairy dust. Put one single bacterium in that swimming pool. 20 minutes later, you got 2, and then 4, and then 8, and 16. And by the time you get within a few days, you've just got wall-to-wall bacteria until the food runs out. Go back to that same swimming pool. Put in one virus. Come back a week later, one virus. A year, a century, a millennium, a million years, there's only one virus. So, but put in one bacterium, and then the virus will invade that bacterium and then make more copies of itself, and then it stops. So it's kind of alive and kind of not alive, depending on how independent you go. So the bacterium can survive, but not if the air temperature is 60 degrees centigrade. So it needs the right environment. In the case of the virus, the environment is inside another living creature. And under those circumstances, it can do some of the characteristics of life, which are to reproduce and have babies, and also evolve to suit the environment and change if necessary.
And what color are they?
They're too small to have color. Let's start off with a meter and then go down by a factor of 1,000. You go down firstly to a millimeter, and then you go to a micrometer or a millionth of a meter. And then you keep going down another 1,000 to a nanometer or a billionth of a meter. Well, an object can have color if it's bigger than the wavelength of light. Now, luckily, I'm not an astronomer, because I would describe every form of electromagnetic radiation as light. Astronomers are like that. So let's just stick to what the rest of us call light, which is the visible light, which is the rainbow, which is between 400 and 700 nanometers, or 0.4 to 0.7 of a micron. Viruses are smaller than that, like 20 to 30 microns across in general. And so they're smaller than light. And so officially they don't have this property called color, because they don't interact with the wavelengths of light that give color. But hey, I'm a big fan of making things that are dangerous red.
Me too, or yellow, because it's visible. The reason we're having this party is because of the brand new Williams River Saturday Night Fever that has struck the Shire, which causes people to jiggle, wiggle, wriggle, and Harlem shake. But I do have a more serious question, which is, can something like the Ross River fever and the coronavirus join up together and create a super virus that could be spread by bandicoots or wombats, and maybe will make us do cubic poos or something?
In the old days, you tend to say no, But as the work of the Nobel Prize winning biologist Barbara McClintock and her research into jumping genes, the answer is yes, but very rarely. Now, with regard to a virus mutating, it will tend to mutate at around 60 to 80% herd immunity or vaccination. So if a virus comes into a population where nobody is vaccinated, there's no evolutionary pressure on it to mutate because it can infect everybody. And if it lands in a society where everybody is vaccinated, there's a lot of pressure for it to mutate. But if it does, it doesn't matter, because in most cases, it doesn't mutate enough and it lands on somebody who's already vaccinated, so it dies. It's that middle area that's dangerous. And that's what we're seeing, the experiment being done right now in the United Kingdom, because they've opened up and dropped all restrictions, and they're in that 60% or so vaccination rate. So we shall see if this hypothesis about nasty mutants evolving is true or not. Watch your space, have the answer in a few weeks.
This takes us to vaccination. Can I ask you, why do they inject vaccines in muscles and not in the blood?
The reason I'm guessing, and this is purely a hypothesis or a conjecture, is that you want to have a slow release of the fragments of the bad guy. And so by putting them into a muscle store, they'll come out slowly. If you deliberately go and hunt and find a vein, mate, it's going to spread really rapidly through the body, and you could have potentially much larger numbers in a smaller period of time. I am guessing that. We need an immunologist to tell us the answer. I'm not one of those. Maybe you'll have one tonight.
Does getting sick and recovering do just as good a job as a vaccine?
Yes and no, depending on the vaccine and the disease against which you're trying to work. In the case of the measles vaccine, it works just as well as getting the disease. But in the case of the new coronavirus called SARS-CoV-2 and the current vaccines that we have, it turns out that the vaccines give you a broader range of antibody response and longer lasting than does infection with the actual virus. This might change as we go into different vaccines further down the line and or as the virus mutates. Watch your space, it's a fluid situation.
But also, I guess, if you, it's better not to get the virus because it makes a lot of people very sick, whereas the vaccine's much rarer.
Let me give you three numbers: 1, 40, and 22,000. And these numbers are averaged out over the whole population, over the whole world, of all different people of different ethnic backgrounds and ages. With regard to dying from getting the AstraZeneca vaccine via a very complicated immunological pathway that just about busted my brain last night when I tried to understand it, the chances of dying are 1 in a million. Traveling on the roads of Australia for a year, that's a 40 in a million chance of dying. Getting infected by the virus, 22,000 out of a million, based on the Johns Hopkins figures averaged out over the whole world, and there's a bit of wiggle room there. But the basic order of magnitude is still the same. 1, 40 for driving on the roads, or 22,000 for actually getting infected.
Fantastic. Can I ask about happiness, endorphins, keeping your spirits up, and lockdown? I want to ask if your shirts give you an endorphin rush or a serotonin rush.
I don't think there's enough hard science on it. The endorphins were first discovered purely by accident in the 1980s, when the more sensitive tests for opiates showed that cow's milk had morphine in it. And it took a little while to work out what was going on. So there's always been this problem. How come a chemical from a little purple plant, the opium poppy, And this plant is made of vegetables. How come the chemical works on you and me, who are not made of vegetables, but we're made of meat? And the answer is it's a coincidence. It makes a chemical called opium or opiates, one of which is morphine. Then you can purify that to make morphine. And it turns out that in the human body, we use chemicals very similar to these opiates as neurotransmitters and hormones in different places in the body. And so we came up with the concept that not only do we have this whole system, but to make it work, we make our own morphine-like chemicals. And so they invented this word, endogenous, endo meaning from within, genus to grow, morphine. And they got rid of the genus and morph and shortened endogenous morphine to endorphin.
Oh, wow.
And that's why we call them morphines.
Wow.
By the way, as a separate result, it turns out the same thing happens for cannabis. And there are results showing that cannabis does wonders for the aging brain of rats. It hasn't been done on humans. They're doing the studies now to see if it works. So now, what was the other part of your question?
No, well, do your shirts give you an endorphin rush? Why do your shirts make you happy, and which hormone is involved?
I can kid myself as to which hormone. I do not know. I haven't been measured, but I'm a big fan of the placebo, especially when it's cheap. And so these shirts take my wife 3 or 4 hours to make. That's not cheap. It's with great respect that I wear them. And hey, look, I've got dead people swimming in the graveyard and witches and stuff. So I'm trying to fit on the dance macabre theme for the day.
Have you got a favorite dance track?
Doctor, give me the news. I got a bad case of loving you.
Yeah, okay. I can't guarantee we'll play that, but we might.
Hot summer night, fella. Okay, right. I'm not that good.
Yeah, well, no, but it does make our evening much cheaper if we can just choose you.
Sure.
To provide all the
and
music.
YouTube is good also.
Do you have a favorite science song?
NaCl by the McGarrigle sisters.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'm going to write that down. Kate and Anna McGarrigle.
Correct, Mundo.
Okay, I'm going to look that up straight away. How do you keep content during lockdown?
Vast amounts of self-delusion. I've always lived in a universe where I try to reinvent the past. And the way things are running in my own internal brain, not only am I a multi-billionaire with half a dozen Nobel Prizes, but I've also managed to get into the political system and subvert the evil of the big fossil fuel companies so that, in fact, we stopped climate change about 20 years ago, and I used my billions for good.
And if we can't stop climate change 20 years ago, the second best time to stop it is now.
Oh, yes. I've written a book on this topic. It's called Dr. Karl's Little Book of Climate Change Science. There'll be soon some videos on this coming out on my new YouTube channel. Keep an eye on drkarl.com. And the bottom line of Dr. Karl's Little Book of Climate Change Science is this. We can both stop and reverse climate change and the rising carbon dioxide levels and bring both of them back to what they were in the 20th century using the technology we have today. All we need are different political decisions. The fossil fuel companies have bought themselves, let me say, influence by spending $1 billion a year for the last 30 years, and they have subverted what's good. And what they've done is a terrible thing. They've brought out the fear to bring children into the world in some people. They're treating our planet like it's their little toy, and they've tipped the Earth off its axis, and they are only a few dozen companies who have done this for their own internal profits to the rest of the world. Naughty, naughty.
Here. Well, we'll have to put a climate change dance in. I don't know which one it'll be, but we will do that.
Now I should say make it one that's both macabre and optimistic because we can both stop and reverse global warming. Go to the website drawdown.org, DRAWDOWN.org, and it tells you how to do that. There's nothing stopping us. Join a political party and go for the politician who will do what you want with regard to climate change. I'm sure that all of them will see enlightenment.
Our town is very in tune with all that. We're a single-use plastic-free town. That's our aim, and we've been very active for quite some time on that. Dungog has. So I'm in alignment. We're all in alignment, aren't we, guys?
Right.
I'm sure they're still there. Can I ask you, how far and fast can our sneezes travel?
I believe I've heard different figures. I'm thinking of the order of 50 to 100 kilometers an hour. I do not know. I'm guessing it's that far. And I reckon that the distance would be of the order of tens of meters. But then you're dealing with the fact that there are vanishingly small quantities at that end. However, some viruses, such as the, what's the one on ships beginning with R?
A friend of ours had that.
Yeah, but anyway, that virus there, the one on ships, that one can infect you with just 20 virus particles. And there have been stories of people at a wedding reception where somebody vomits with it on one side of the room, and on the other side of the room, 30% of the people get infected.
Oh my God.
It's a nasty one.
Yeah, we don't want that one joining up with coronavirus.
No.
Why do we shut our eyes when we sneeze?
It's a reflex for no good reason. We have many reflexes. Sneezing is a very powerful reflex. And the reason it's so powerful is to protect your lungs. Get some bad stuff in your mouth and it goes into your stomach, probably come out the other end. You don't want to eat batteries because they might burn a hole through your esophagus. But in general, most of it comes out the other end. But if it goes into your lungs, you're relying on your macrophages to get rid of it. The bottom line is you don't want stuff to go into your lungs. Hence, we have a very powerful sneeze reflex. I do not know why the reflex is married to shutting your eyes, because this can be potentially dangerous in a modern society. Roughly 3% of the population suffer from the Archu syndrome, where they sneeze when they see bright light. And if you're driving on a road and there are trees at the side of the road and the sun's on the left or the right, and you're getting this flickering light, you'll be starting to sneeze and you cannot see the road. Dangerous. Don't know why.
1, 2, 3.
Smoking is a health hazard.
Hey, Karl, what's the most important thing about telling a joke?
Timing.
I thought it was casting. Do you like to dance?
In a deep and fundamental way. I learned when I was in New Guinea and kept on doing it ever since.
Oh, what sort of dances did you learn in New Guinea?
Something undescribable, but at least I'm having a lot of fun and I'm loving doing it.
Okay. Do you dance when you're by yourself?
I do not know why. The answer is yes. And I do not know why certain types of music just make you wanna dance, but I enjoy it.
So do I. Now, can I ask everyone else if they've got any questions for Dr. Karl?
Yeah, about tips on keeping the spirits up, really, in times of lockdown.
That depends on a variety of factors: physical, mental, and emotional. If you are in a situation where you are a single person by yourself without a support network, and the only job you've got is casual work, which is gone, and you have no access to money, you would be a very unhappy person, and quite rightly, because you'd be staring down the barrel of poverty, etc., etc. So what is really handy is you've got some income coming in of some sort, that you've got a family support mechanism around you, and you've got friends whom you love, and you've also got intellectual stimulation, and maybe even, I know this is impossible to say in Australia, access to reasonable internet.
You're right. That can help.
Yeah, which up here is a bit dodgy at times, I'm afraid.
Oh yes, yes.
Well,
So
on internet, our speed is half the world average, even though we're one of the world's wealthiest countries. Our gross national product is roughly equal to that of Russia, which has a space program and nuclear weapons and Russian eggs nested inside each other. And the world average for internet speed is 80 down and 40 up. In Australia, even though we're one of the wealthiest countries on earth, we're 40 down and 20 up. We're not even average. We're not even in the top. I know.
But if only it was an Olympic sport. We do really well. So do you have a favorite plague? Mine is the bubonic plague because it has the bubo. And I don't know what it is, but it sounds really scary and it's probably red.
The bubo is a swelling on the skin that looks bad. My favorite plague also is the Great Plague, simply because of the name of the infectious agent, which is Yersinia pestis. And I've always thought that Yersinia is such a lovely name. And I've always wanted to name our daughters Yersinia, but I was convinced out of it on the grounds that it's not good to say, come here, Black Death and killer of everybody. Would you like a cup of tea? So that's my favorite plague because it was a lovely name.
That's a beauty. Can you beatbox?
What is beatboxing?
That's where you go.
I have many areas of ignorance, and that's up there at the top.
Why do we smell when we get sick?
We are dynamic, and chemicals are released from us. So you might think, just looking at somebody standing or sitting, they're just a boring lump of wetware and protoplasm and a meat bag, but inside, the water molecules are going across membranes so that in the period of a 24-hour day, the amount of water that goes across your membranes is 50 tons or 50,000 litres. Now, to make things happen, you use a molecule called ATP, adenosine triphosphate, and this sets reactions off, such as moving eyelids, blood flowing, heart beating, lungs, etc., kidneys filtering. And at any given moment, you've got about 200 or 300 grams of ATP, but in the course of a day, you manufacture your own body weight in ATP. So hang on, what was the exact question again?
I don't know. I'm on the journey with you. Where are we going with this? What was my question? Does anyone remember? Oh, yeah, why do you smell?
And so you are an incredibly dynamic creature. And so now I shall leave you with a quandary. The smells that you emit come out of your various parts of your body, your mouth, your nose, and your sweat glands. And there was two stories. First story, when I was working as a doctor in a kids' hospital in Camperdown, I was amazed by the ability of some of the senior staff who had experience to simply smell the breath of an incoming patient and say, yep, appendicitis. And they'd have a smell, I couldn't pick it up. I didn't have enough experience. Second story, there was a woman in the United Kingdom who one morning said to her husband, you smell funny. And he had a shower, still smell funny. Diet, clothes, still smell funny. Nothing much happened for about 8 years, except he still kept on smelling funny, until finally he came down with Parkinson's disease. They ended up going to the GP, the neurologist, and then joining a Parkinson's disease self-help group. They drove to the location. She opened the door of the car and she could suddenly smell that smell again. She can smell Parkinson's disease, and she's the only one we've ever found, but she can do it. So why do we smell? Why do we emit funny smells out of our bodies? because we're such a dynamic creature, shifting 50 tons of water a day internally. And as part of the detritus, maybe a few nanograms of chemicals come out, and maybe some people can smell them and some can't. But most can't.
Oh, wow. Have a lovely night tonight, and thank you. We're going to party.
Thank you for letting me join your party, and providing the music is primitive enough, I will dance. Now, there is one thing I should tell you, that most people end up getting conditioned by their, we don't know why, but getting conditioned to love only the music that was around between when they hit puberty and their mid-20s. Everything else before that and after that is crap. So there's some handy advice.
Right. So we're going to have an age group aged from 8 to 85. So that gives us quite a broad range of music to choose from.
Yes, excellent.
Yes, and we'll get 1% of the people dancing at any one stage.
Yes.
He's a natural.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you so much. And good
Thank
luck with
Thank you.
answering questions.
My pleasure. Thank you. Okay. See you later, guys. Got to get on to the next thing. Lovely to talk with you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for your time. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.